education sector. And what they do is they find and support graduates of STEM, exceptional graduates of STEM. They then equip them with teaching skills, place them in schools, and hey presto, start to improve how maths, science, and technology is taught. And what I'm told is that in the last academic year, through the program, they saw a 60 to 100% improvement in the pass rate. Is that true?
Yes.
CEO of Teach, Sedibeng Ngubane, tell us about the work that you do.
Yes, look, I mean, that is true. And I think, just to answer what you mentioned now, you said how important is STEM, right? And we're not saying you must stop playing your piano. It is true. But what everybody needs to understand is that STEM education actually helps learners, right, to develop critical thinking, analytical skills, and problem-solving abilities. And this you can take across any career. So I don't know if you did maths. I didn't. I dropped it, I think, at standard 8.
Yeah.
And I have regrets about that because I can see the difference between the way I think and the way other people think who've actually studied STEM subjects.
Well, I was in a school where you were not allowed to drop maths.
Good for you.
You just weren't allowed.
Mm-hmm.
You could rather just kind of pass basically, and this is higher grade maths, or whatever they call pure maths. You can pass 50 to 55, 60, but you're not taking it.
True. Well, I wasn't that lucky. This is way back in the day. We're not going to talk about how long ago that was.
All right.
And I think that Teach, really, we have a huge responsibility of making sure that no child is left behind. We talk about the better schools that they are more capacitated to teach STEM subjects. We, as Teach South Africa, only send our we call them ambassadors.
Right.
These are young graduates who come in from the different universities with a very stringent way of recruiting them and making sure that we train them and put them in schools. And it's under-resourced schools. We're talking about under-resourced schools. It's important that they also have good teachers in STEM.
I'm going to bring in a bit of TV here and recommend a series. It's new to Apple TV. It's called Prime Target. And at first, when I have you seen it?
I've seen it.
Yeah. So it's brilliant, hey?
Yes.
So when they first sort of advertised about this maths genius, I didn't want to watch it. I was like, it's going to be so boring. And then I watched, and now I'm hooked. And one of the things that they were able to do in a very creative way is demonstrate how maths is all around us. When you look at the flower, you've just brought us this beautiful bunch of flowers. You'll find that each rosebud has X number of petals on it. And it's that X number that gives the rose its shape. And then when the rose opens up, certain diameter, never too much, never too small, is what gives out the fragrance. That even water droplets in the rain have a certain width and a diameter. The droplets can never be too big or too small. And then when they hit the earth's surface, like just the surface of your car, they only spread out a certain percentage and never. And so suddenly you realize that maths is in everything beautiful around you. And so the whole thing is about the wonders of the universe and maybe the majesty of God and whatever the case may be, but also how mathematicians, when they're able to find these patterns in the droplets, in the rose buds, in the bark of the tree, when they're able to put that into an algorithm, then they're able to shape how humanity works, and then that becomes the plot in the story. So to simplify what I'm saying is, if we recognize that there's mathematics in everything that we do, then I think we draw people into it.
Absolutely.
But if we simplify it as just numbers and these very complicated formulae, then it makes people scared.
And that is the reason why a lot of people are struggling with math and science, because they're thinking of numbers instead of bringing it and making it alive in class. And that is precisely why teachers only concentrating on young people. We're bringing these young graduates fresh from university, and they've got STEM subject degrees, so they're actually quite good at what they do. Right? They are content rich, and because they are young, they're almost the same age as the learners that they're teaching. They bring it alive, and this is what Lebogang is going to be talking about, because this is really what he does. But over the years, over the 15 years, we've put in over 800 ambassadors in schools around the country. We have had an impact on over 1.9 million learners and more, you know. And because we bring these people that they can, it's easy for them to identify with. And just the way that they teach maths and science is incredible.
Okay, before we bring in the ambassador, so the mandate of Teach SA, has it always been about preparing learners for STEM subjects? Or you've been doing a whole range of education solutions, but suddenly you realize this is the big one?
It's always been STEM. It's always been STEM. So it's always been science, maths. We also bring in English, right? We also deploy English ambassadors because, as you know, it's the language of, yeah. So it's important that they understand English and they're comfortable with it, because all the equations and everything that they'll be doing in maths and science are done in English. And we concentrate on STEM. Because other people concentrate on the other subjects, and for us it is very important that we concentrate on STEM. We're worried about the number of students who are dropping maths. Not that we're saying maths lit is any less important. I think it's very important. I actually think that we should have the two parallel, not one and or the other. But also science is really important. We talk about innovation. How do you innovate if you don't have science? There's a reason why science is important. If you want to be able to compete with the best in the world, you need scientists.
Okay. Yep. And so that speaks to robotics, etc. And so the engineering side of it?
Engineering as well, because when they pass science and maths, they end up going into those careers. I mean, I've got a very impressive list of some of the talent pool that we have of the ambassadors that we put in schools. I mean, BSc in geology, in agriculture, applied chemical technology, astrophysicists. These are ambassadors. These are their degrees that they study. And we get them fresh from university and we say, come, bring that geology, right?
And how old are the learners?
The learners are we start from grade 8, between the grade 8 and grade 12. Initially, Teach was supposed to concentrate on grade 8 and 9. But then obviously it depends on what the Department of Education, basic department, what they need from us. And if they need matric students, if they need ambassadors to teach matric students, then we end up in matric.
And so when you say ambassadors, they're not officially teachers of DBE.
No, they're not. That's the thing. So we bring them in. They've got this, the lowest education level they have is a junior degree. We've got some who go up as high as masters, and they come in and we put them through a very rigorous 2-week training program where they live, sleep, and they are in campus.
So you teach them to teach.
We teach them to teach pedagogy, classroom management, entrepreneurial skills, leadership skills, and by the time after 2 weeks, probably it's like they're ready to go to class, right? And when we do that, we also encourage them to study PGCE. So the PGCE is the postgraduate diploma in education. So then once they're done so our program is 2 years. We put them in class for 2 years, and in that 2 years we encourage them to do the PGCE, because then after 2 years they're professional teachers.
Okay. So Lebogang, let's bring you into the conversation. Lebogang Phiri, an ambassador. So you've obviously got one of these very high-tech fancy degrees. Then OCD found you. Then she said, we're gonna make you a teacher of what your expertise is. And then we're going to unleash you to the wolves. And what was that like?
It was quite a journey, because growing up, I never thought I'd want to be a teacher, or I never saw myself in a classroom. So when Teach came to my university to recruit graduates to come and give back, you know how they structure it. They come to you and they tell you, give us 2 years of your life so that you can give back to the community that you come from, or you can give back to your black communities, and then expose learners to rich maths and science, and then inspire them to go further and study and become engineers and become doctors and become scientists. So for me, I had already started on my journey as I was tutoring at university.
Yeah.
So I was working with
Okay.
first-year chemistry students. So it gave me an idea of what I was getting myself into. But then it also inspired me to actually take this opportunity because I realized that majority of learners are failing out of first year because they lack the basics. They have an understanding of what is physics, they have an understanding of what is chemistry, but when they actually have to go through the nitty-gritties, the importance of certain aspects of it, that's where they're lacking. So that inspired me to actually become part of Teach. So I trained with Teach and I was placed initially in 2021 in a school in Sedibeng called Lerato Mbhele Secondary School.
Okay, you've just said an interesting thing to me. So first you were at university, you were a tutor of first-year students, but you observed something about the quality of first-year students, is they had all qualified to do university level chemistry, but they still couldn't quite connect chemistry with the real world. And so they were failing university chemistry, and yet they passed brilliantly at matric.
Yes. So that's one of the challenges you actually see when you get to university. You know, when they do stats, they can tell you how many people qualified to get into university, but they never go into how many people actually stayed and then they graduated in that specific course. Like if you walk into a first year class, you find there's 300, 400 learners who are doing like a first year chemistry module, for an example. But 90% of them are going to pass and move on to the second level. Some of them, they actually end up changing qualifications altogether because it can be a bit challenging. The speed, they're learning, and then they assume you have all the academic background required to do those courses. So that's where Teach and ambassadors come in to bridge in that gap, to make sure that all learners are academically ready for what comes next.
Okay, which speaks to some of the conversations that were being had at a high level during the matric results, because we were looking at this incredible 87% pass rate, but you were getting DBE's ministers saying, how many of these are going to be able to finish the courses they're registered for? In fact, each year, said the Deputy Minister of Higher Education, we're seeing 5,000 fewer engineering graduates than we did a decade ago, for exactly this reason that you're pointing out, Lebogang. So now you want to address that void. So tell us what happens in the classroom. Once you got to Sedibeng, what did you have to do to make sure that your students, when they get to university, they stay?
The first thing that I did when I got into a classroom is I administered a baseline test. So basically, you get learners in a grade, let's say for example grade 10 physical science. They've passed their grade 9, they're ready to start and then learn, but we administer baseline tests just to check where are they academically. Do they actually know those skills required to be in this grade? So once you identify where your learners are, then you get into your planning. So you'll find that majority of the learners, they just barely made it into the class. So that means as you are a teacher, when you start teaching your grade 10 learners, you need to be cognizant of where they are. Do they have all the basic understanding that you require? Which most of the time you find that they do not. We always go back to the basics. When you introduce a new chapter, you ensure that, you know what, they have the information they need so that this chapter makes sense.
You reinforce
it and you ensure. And the other problem you get to realize is that most learners shy away from maths, they shy away from science because they're told maths is difficult. Because they don't see it in the context of their everyday lives. Yes, so our main idea is as you teach, because we come from the same place as they come from. You know, we've had similar experiences. So you use the experiences to show them where is science in your everyday life, where is math in your everyday life. You know, there are topics we teach in math grade 8 where we talk about rates and reactions. I'm sorry, not rates and reactions, rates and ratios. And then you get to show learners that, you know what, when you go buy a liter of petrol, they always give you a price. They tell you at 7 rand a liter. That is actually what we talk about when we talk about a ratio. So that learners, they see that this is an everyday thing. It's not just a concept on the book that they must learn. It's something that they actually apply on a daily basis.
Yeah, because in the real world, you know, some people will buy full tank. Some of us are going to ratio that thing until month end. Rates and ratios.
Rates and ratios. You need to know how many kilometers you're driving so that you know how much you're saving. It applies.
You're laugh, but yeah, it's true, right? We're living like that, right? Right? You can either buy the loaf of bread or half a loaf or a quarter. Which one are
You've
you
got
doing
options.
today? You've got options. And so you need to bring it down to that kind of reality.
Exactly.
What were the students like when you met them?
You know what? Honestly speaking, when you walk into most classrooms, science-based classrooms, the learners are dedicated. The learners are eager to learn. The learners are just waiting for someone to inspire them and to make them be more involved. And I find that one way of doing that is not only to concentrate on what you're doing in the classroom, but to also find extra curricular activities you can do with them that speaks to science. For an example, I had a group of learners in my previous school that I introduced to coding and robotics through a private company called Social Coding. So basically, what I did is I communicated with Social Coding, and I partnered with them so that they can expose my learners to coding and robotics. So they would come to my school once a week on Thursday, 2-hour sessions where they start by showing a learner how to use a computer, then what programs are we using. They'll bring Lego kits so they can build the different robots and command them to do certain things. And then 6 months later, they will take them to a competition they host in Monte Cassino so that they can showcase their skills. So that gets learners very committed to your education. And then the other thing is, you know what, you tell them, in order to remain in my group, I require certain levels. I need a level 6 here, I need a level 7 there. So it inspires them to always be engaged. So teacher ambassadors, that's what we call legacy projects. So when you get into a classroom, you also find other projects that you can get learners interested in, science-based, to get them more involved or engaged in your education.
When I spoke about that Apple series, Prime Target, you nodded, right? Because obviously you've watched an episode and you know what I'm talking about. And I think this idea that context matters is that if somebody doesn't make you see that there's mathematics all around you, or there's science all around you. We're all in one studio. Everybody's got a microphone, but we all have to be careful how we speak into the microphone because the sound carries. So if we don't put things into context, then young people don't see how their world is connected by science. The first thing that comes to my mind right now is, in the townships, we have a lot of face brick houses. People love their face brick houses. I'm sure if we counted each brick per line, we'd find that there's a pattern.
Absolutely.
But we don't see that.
Yes.
And so if you're going to be building, you have to know the maths.
Yes.
The quantities of cement.
Yes.
So tell us how you bring that reality.
You know, for most concepts, right? When you teach, it's easy to just walk into a classroom and tell learners about multiplying and dividing, or tell them about forces. For example, let's talk about physics. There's a topic where we teach learners about forces and equilibrium and all of those many different contexts and terms that they do not identify with. But when you actually bring it down to elemental level, when you basically tell learners about equilibrium, you make them do activities like tag and war. I think they call it tag of war.
Yeah, tag of war.
For example, where people,
you stand on this side of the rope, we then pull.
And then you get to show them that, you know what, when I talk about equilibrium, I will talk about a situation where people are pulling but no one is moving because the forces are now balancing. And then if I were to add one learner on this side, the force on this side will be greater than the force on the other side. Hence, this learner is moving to the left, or hence that learner is moving to the right. You take it from that level, and then you build it up to actually what happens when you're driving a car, and we're talking about the importance of seatbelt. You know, that is a scientific concept that learners actually talk about in grade 11 physical science. So in order for them to understand what happens when you get into an accident and why it's important to put on a seatbelt, they need to first understand forces that are balancing. So you need to build it up like that. So if you don't build it up and you just walk in and you say, here's a concept, we're talking about a force, they look at you like you're speaking something foreign.
And this is what you meant, Osedi, when you said the English matters, because the scientific language is so esoteric.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And whereas equilibrium is just talking about the balance of forces if you pull two ropes, one on this side and one on that side. So if you don't understand the English, and you certainly can't see or imagine the concept, it's lost to you. So what about teaching people in their vernacular languages then?
Look, I mean, I think that, as you know, that the Department of Education is actually implementing that. It is a talk. We haven't really fully implemented that. And I think we can't take English away, right? Because you will learn about it, you will learn in class using the language, but when you go out to work, you will have to speak the language, right? So English is something that we will never be able to take away. But I agree with you that it needs to be taken into consideration, particularly because a lot of the schools that you are in are either rural schools or township schools, where people speak Zulu or Sotho, whatever vernacular, for the longest period of their lives.
Let's talk about the work that you do with the Department of Basic Education, because there's some kind of synergy. You said, the department kind of tells you their needs and then you see if you can fill the pipeline.
So the Department of Education is our biggest partner, as you can imagine, because we are able to put ambassadors in school through our partnership. As it is right now, we have been given 45 posts in Gauteng area, so which means that we go and deliver. We've just delivered the last 3 yesterday, so we go around the country and we deliver ambassadors in the different schools. So that relationship with the Department of Education is vital for us to be able to get the posts. We've got an MOU with the department, and we have in the past posted ambassadors around the country in all 9 provinces. We're busy right now with posting others in KZN, but this is a private one, right? So the Department of Education gives us so many posts and we fill those. But then we also get approached by private companies who say, I need brilliant science and maths teachers. Can I get teachers from you? And we say, yes, you can get them. We train them, we'll give them to you, but just make sure that you pay them, because the Department of Education pays them a proper salary. And we also approach private entities to say, you're an engineering company where you are as part of your CSI, because you've got schools around the area where you are. Would you like us to then give you good teachers? So we've had that, but really we just serve our communities. We want to make sure that, as I said again, no child is left behind.
And what's your success rate at Teach?
So we have we bring them in. You must remember that in a lot of instances, when Lebogang comes in, he's not sure if he wants to be a teacher, right? But it sounds interesting, and also to give for at least a minimum of 2 years. And we have over 65% retention rate. People who go out, teach for 2 years, and come back and say, I want to continue teaching because I feel that I have a bigger impact in class than I would have if it was in a corporate company.
And in terms of the students' output?
The students, look, I mean, I can sit here and give you stories. I can give you stories. We've had students who came in grade 11 and 12 were passing at 30% and low grades, and they pass at 90% when they get to matric, and then they go on to then get into engineering or science related degrees that they never thought would be something that they wanted to do. So our success rate has really been, we sit and we listen to these beautiful stories, and that's how we gauge our impact.
What does TEACH stand for? TEACH?
It stands for Teacher, Education and Curriculum Help.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, to teach. And then finally, Lebogang, you say when you were recruited at university, Teach South Africa said to you, you're this science graduate, would you want to give back to your community? Yes. That was a compelling sort of reason.
Yes.
And so, what do you make of that? Do you feel you've given back to your community?
I feel I've contributed to my community, and they recruited me in 2021, and I'm still in the classroom today. Wow. So I completed my PGCE, and now I'm a qualified teacher, and that's what I do, and that's what I love, because when it comes to teaching, you get to see your impact on a daily basis. I mean, a learner, we are taught that, we are teaching a whole individual. You're not just teaching content, you're teaching them behavior, you're teaching them social etiquette, how to behave in their environment. So you get to see the changes on a daily basis, and that is very rewarding. And that's why I'm still here, contributing to society.
This is what we call social impact, when businesses are not just about the profit, but about social impact. It's Teach, TEACH. We've been speaking to the CEO of Teach South Africa, Sedibeng Ngubane, joined by an ambassador who is now a teacher, Lebogang Phiri. And if you want to get a hold of them, please find them at TEACH. It's a different way of viewing entrepreneurship and making a valuable contribution to South Africa. And we want to salute you for the work that you do.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, that's where we leave it for today. We do it again tomorrow. Thank you.
It was, I thought.
No, you
I
done
thought it was
good.
going to be so difficult. Like, yo.
Why must it be difficult?